This is a video recording to show you a little bit more about the visual ranking tool. This is an example that maybe you could use either as whole class or to introduce this learning process in this tool with your students. So we'll go back and review just a little bit. You first have to have this project in your teacher workspace. So I'm setting it up here in my teacher workspace, and I have my project name. I've given a description to the students, their actual prompt, and then I have put some placeholder words in here while I'm building this project. And so the lesson is that students are supposed to figure out the characteristics of a hero. Now, to help them and give them a little bit background information, you would give a little more detail in the description. Another thing that I would allow my students to do so that they're actually having those conversations and collaborative time before using the tool is to let them go to a couple of websites and start talking about some things that maybe they haven't thought of. Because to really put things into words can be a little bit difficult. They know what they want to say, they're just not finding the right words to say it. And so having them do this ahead of time is also, I think, very valuable. So now that the students are put to task to do that, they're going to either open up a Word doc or something that is a word processing, and they're going to start making their list. So what I've put on here are an example of two student groups who are generating their list. It's just a list of words. Remember, we don't want things that are even two-word phrases because that can get messed up in the visual ranking tool. So what you see here is, and back to my lesson, I've instructed the students that they're to come up with no less than 4, no more than 7. That kind of gives them some guidelines as to what they're supposed to be doing. So I have a group here who's come up with a list of words somewhere between 4 and 7, and then I have a second group here. So I'm going to pull that off of my workspace, and now I've got my teacher workspace back open. So the lesson's already created. The students are working in their student teams coming up with their list, and now you're bringing everyone back together as a whole class. I would flash this up from the projector, and I would just tell them, Team 1, let's hear what your list is, or draw your teams at random, however you want to do it. The other teams, you need to be listening for the words that have already been used so that we don't repeat. And we're going to come up with a list, and we're going to keep our list to 9 or 10, no more than that. So I start with Team 1, and the first list that they have was bold, compassionate, and I'm going to spell correctly this time, trustworthy, respectful, courageous, and selfless. So I'm going to take their words, and at this point I'm just going to copy them in here. And then I'm going to say, okay, let's look at the team number 2. What words have you used that are already up here? So let's leave those out. Give me words that we haven't used. And then this group comes up with leader and honorable and brave. And so let's say that we've gone through all the groups, and this is the list that we've come up with. So now the students are getting ready to work in here. So this just takes, maybe 10 minutes of your time. And then as a teacher in my workspace, I'm going to hit continue. Remember to leave this checked. Show correlation when the students are comparing lists, because that's where more of their thought processes come through the value of this tool. As this is saving then, the students are going to be reorganizing themselves in their groups, in their teams, and they're getting ready to open this tool. So what I would encourage them to do is to use one student computer to do this. And then when the teacher says, okay, I've got the teams in there now you guys can log in as students and begin working. And remember, once you've submitted this list as a teacher in the workspace, if you have pictures set up ahead of time, then you would put your pictures in now. I don't have pictures. So let's talk about when you would put in pictures. When you would put in pictures is if you have already generated a list for whatever skill you're asking the students to use, and you have pictures in there. So you've actually done all the work in the visual ranking tool by generating the list prior to having the students go in as students. So I'm not going to add pictures here, so I don't have anything to add from my library, and I'm going to hit submit. takes me right to my teams and how I want to add my teams. For this purpose, I'll add MSU1 and MSU2 so that we can see a correlation between. Remember, you've got to go all the way to the bottom, assign check teams, takes you to the top, and you say done. It's at this point that you say to your students, I'm ready for you to log into your student workspace and go to the visual ranking project titled Characteristics of a Hero. As a teacher, I've got 2 teams assigned here. So we're going to take a look at it on the student side in the next video segment.